Hello, everyone. I'm Marty Chinesky, and along with my buddy George Perdue, and Ken Brown is not available today, scheduling conflicts. But today is April 21st, 2021. George, been off for a week. How was your week, first of all?
Well, and I really, if the schedule would have been right, I wouldn't even have been here because we were supposed to have our first middle school track meet. Of course, Mother Nature had other plans as far as that goes. So a lot of things have been shut down the last couple days, and so that's why I'm here today. So because of us not being able to have our track meet, which has now got rescheduled to Friday, a lot of the schools are trying to scramble to get stuff in because the schedule is pretty rigid for a lot of things. I know high school track, they were supposed to have their first one on Tuesday. That got canceled. So that's why I'm here, and hopefully Mother Nature cooperates for the rest of the week and weeks ahead of the spring schedule.
I'm going to have to start lining up some guests because it looks like I'm flying solo. Any volunteers want to come help Marty out, you just step right up, okay? We'll let you in. We did get a couple inches of snow yesterday, and now at 5 o'clock you wouldn't even know that it's out there. Most of it's melted, but the rowers were strong yesterday. They were out there. I had my bowling banquet at the boat club, and they were loading the boats and getting them out there. I think it was the Riverview team.
Yeah.
They were out there, snow blowing sideways.
Yeah, it seems like some of those, it doesn't matter. And, and that's the one thing, too. We're lucky with, like, what Wyandotte has. The track kids can get up on the indoor track in the gym. Some schools, it seems like now between, like, batting cages indoors and so many things, the biggest problem, though, is for all the teams to be able to get in, can be proved difficult. But there's definitely a lot of room for facilities for schools to be able to do those types of things. So, so hopefully, you wouldn't even know. The trees look beautiful this morning. I mean, it was you want to take your picture for your Christmas card. This morning would have been the day to do that. But looking at it right now, and I know tomorrow's supposed to start the warm up and Friday. But you always get that last little snowfall in April.
April 20th. That's a late one, though. That's a late one.
A little bit. Let's hope it's the last one.
All right, so we can start with baseball because I know our baseball team has played a few games. What do you know about the baseball kids?
So we, on air last week, we kind of said, hey, they beat Taylor 3-2. They played a couple games over the weekend. They played Canton and Stony Creek and lost to both those teams. And then had their first game on Monday with their, I don't know if you want to call it arch rival, but it's always been a big game against Trenton. And they lost that game 5-0. They were supposed to play Southgate yesterday. That didn't happen. So, been a little streaky here for some of the games. They started off 0-4 or 0-3, then they won 5 in a row, and they've lost a couple. But Stony Creek and Canton and Trenton, really, those are three solid schools that you're seeing, and that's one of the things that Coach Cotner's really try to do is, that weekend competition. It's nice to go outside the Downriver League. It's nice to play some of those schools. I know we've seen that in a lot of sports. It's nice to see competition that more so than what you're going to just see in the league games. So
I'll agree with that. I know the softball team, I haven't found a victory for them yet either. I know they lost 8-1 to Trenton, and I know they got spanked pretty good by Saline, like 15-2. I've got a 17-6 score against Riverview. Softball team struggling, and if you're giving up those many runs, you're not catching the ball. I think that's pretty much it. You're not catching the ball. Yeah,
and I think it's for some of the softball kids. I think they might be a little bit of a younger team too, and I think some of those growing pains. I mean, I didn't realize till you really thought about it. I mean, you have some of these kids. Like, what if you're a sophomore that never played last year because of everything that happened? So you've had almost like a 2-year layoff for a lot of sports. So these kids kind of getting back into it can prove to be pretty difficult. Like, I know at the middle school level, I'm working with shot putters, and I have like one kid, an 8th grader, who's actually ever thrown a shot put in their entire life, and I don't realize. I'm like, okay, yeah, he would have threw it as a 6th grader because those kids as 7th graders didn't throw. These 6th and 7th graders that I have now have never done that stuff. So you have to. It's the layoff for some of these kids, and never doing some of this stuff could be difficult.
It does put it into perspective, that's for sure. I have another score. I mean, Edsel Ford won their first game of the year, and then, they lost their first game 10-0 to Woodhaven, and that was a no-hitter, by the way, the Woodhaven team. And then won their next three. They're 3-1 on the season. They beat Cass Tech on a doubleheader, and then they turned around and beat Gibraltar Carlson.
Yeah, and and that's the thing too for some of these schools that are in the Downriver League. A team like Etzel Ford, which not one of the bigger schools compared to like the Woodhavens, the Gibraltars. They're really the only school from Dearborn that's in our league. And they've got some pretty successful teams. And some of the programs that they've brought in the Downriver League last few years have done a pretty good job.
What do we have here? Southgate Anderson took a 7-run lead after 2 innings against Lincoln Park last Thursday, and they rolled to a 10-0 victory. Anderson's 4-3, 2-2 in the Downriver League. So
yeah, I actually know the head coach Eric Druzniak, who's actually a friend of mine. I actually saw him this past Saturday, talked to him for a little bit, and and he was saying it's the same thing. It's kind of been a little bit up and down with kind of how they've been looking for some consistency. They were supposed to play Wyandotte yesterday, so. Southgate, Wyandotte, we were talking about that, kind of how big that rivalry was like 10 years ago and how much Southgate and Wyandotte has changed in almost all sports. You don't see that rivalry as much anymore.
Well, rivalries mean, you can beat each other up, but Woodhaven has seemed to step up to, the Woodhaven and Trenton baseball. They're always solid. And, if you can't, it's rivalries are funny like that because it's always about, you're always the top 2 teams playing each other. Now you're middle of the pack team, the rivalry thing kind of dies down a little bit.
And facilities, I think, have a little bit to play with that too. Woodhaven's facilities, if you've had a chance to see them.
Oh, yes.
I'm surprised they don't have like a bowling alley on site because, it's just like they're building a field house. I think it's almost completed. That was the thing. The track team went to Ypsi Lincoln on Saturday. And I talked to some of the people that were from there, and they went inside their field house. It was unreal. It was the exact same thing as if they were to move. They could have taken the track and field events and moved them inside to the field house and had it done in there. And I guess Woodhaven has theirs being built. And that's the thing with a lot of schools around here. You don't have the land to be able to build stuff like that. Woodhaven, they're getting kids in and facilities left and right being updated. And I think that plays a big factor too into how well some of these schools could be doing.
There may be a day they buy that bowling alley down the street from them because who the heck knows? They do put some into it. What else do I have in baseball? Oh, Woodhaven and Allen Park. Now there's 2 strong teams, and Woodhaven Warriors 6-run lead after 4 innings and ran up a mercy, by the 5th inning. Oh, yes, I'm reading the wrong line. They went 7 scoreless innings, and then in the 8th inning, Woodhaven scored a couple of runs, took a 2-0 lead. But the Michigan State signee, Ryan Skiskaniak, yeah, that'll work, Ryan, 18 strikeouts in 7 innings, okay? So that's bringing some heat.
If he's going to Michigan State, he has to be pretty good as far as that goes. We have some kids that have gone to different places. Baseball-wise, we've had a few in recent years, but, to be able to go to Michigan State, that's a pretty good accomplishment for him. And, yeah, striking out 18, only allowing 1 hit, walking 1 in 7 innings, only throwing 77 pitches. That's pretty remarkable when you think about that.
40, let's see, 3 times 8, 54 of them were strikes.
Yeah, and so that's pretty impressive for him to be able to do something like that. So, and like you said, and the record speaks for itself. They haven't lost a game yet, 2-0 in the Downriver League, and it seems like teams are going to be looking up at Woodhaven baseball going forward here for the rest of the season.
Yeah, and like you say, the facilities and the having the bodies, they draw from that whole area down there. Them kids. School of choice, they can get the Flat Rock kid and they can get the Carlson kid, and they're able to stretch it out a little bit. Wyandotte gets the Lincoln Park kids and we get the Ecorse kids, and so it's how it works. But you can't recruit.
Right.
Don't get the wrong impression.
Yeah, and you've seen in a lot of schools. You get that from across the board. I think I've never looked at the numbers to kind of compare like what percentage of school of choice, athletic-wise, you would get from kids going to Wyandotte or kids going to Lincoln Park or, things along those lines. But it definitely happens. You've seen that for the last, 15, 20 years almost.
Yeah, and it probably single-handedly killed the Lincoln Park football program for a while there because all of their kids were going to Allen Park.
Yeah.
The majority of them were going to play football there because Allen Park had such a strong program. And Lincoln Park wasn't, and again, not that there's any recruiting going on, but Now the Catholic schools, there's some recruiting going on.
Yeah, and they've changed some of the rules too, which was to kind of curb some of that. I know the big one that happened this past year is that if after your freshman year, if you transfer schools, then or you do a school of choice, you have to sit out for an entire year. It used to be you had to sit out like half a year, so a kid could come in, in like January, and now it's a thing where like if the kid came in January, they couldn't even play football that following year too. So. They try to, at the lower level, if you're a freshman, that's one thing, but they're looking for kids that are sophomores, juniors, or going into your senior year.
And decide to jump
ship.
and
decide to go to a different school. They've tried to stop those things from happening by implementing a few things. Not that it's foolproof. I mean, if you have a parent that lives, in that city, that could be something that obviously changes it. I don't think you're ever going to have it completely level across the board as far as how that's done.
No, it's same in the college level, They get to pick where they go, but now when they sit out, they don't even have to wait the year. Now if they transfer.
Yeah, the key word is what? Transfer portal? It's like,
Yes.
It's like I never even heard of what a transfer portal was. And now you hear these athletes that go into the transfer portal where now they can, go to different places and stuff like that. And, you've seen that happen a lot more often.
And not only now do these coaches have to recruit for college, but now they have to pay attention to who's in the portal.
Right.
That they can maybe go after.
And move a scholarship around and say, okay, we're going to take it from this kid and give it to the kid that we can bring in as maybe a fifth-year senior or something along those lines. You've seen that happen in football, all the time. So.
Yep, you do see that. When we coach, as coaches, we, and Ken used to say this all the time, we coach so our kids can go to college, maybe get a ride. Now, the percentage of kids that actually get to go get part of their college paid for is slim. It's a couple percent. But, there were 3 just recently signed here, and then a couple of the Wyandotte football players. But the Woodhaven senior, Marco Ramirez, who last year in bowling was Final 2. This year he didn't make the cut, but he had a poor last game and he shot himself out of the cut. He's going to bowl at Lawrence Tech, who is slowly but surely building themselves into a dynasty for Division II. Is that what they are?
I believe so.
Even if it's 3, they got a strong bunch of bodies. I know they have, on the girls' side, they have Norris, but their girls' team's pretty solid. And the boys, they're building a dynasty over there. I know our football quarterback is
Jalen Pitchford.
Jalen.
Yep. Yeah, who I just found out was actually named. He's the representative to the All-Star game for Wyandotte. He's going to be playing in the All-Star game, which is going to be happening at Lawrence Tech in June.
Nice.
We've had a few kids go in the years past. I mean, Jalen's a great kid. He's one of the first kids, I think I mentioned before in the past, a top 10, not just top 10%, but in the top 10 of the graduating class. We haven't had a kid in that in probably 7 years who played football. So not just only a great athlete, but just a great kid and in general. And like most of these kids, you mentioned about kids that go, I looked up for my nephew because, again, he has his aspirations of playing in college. Like in football, only 3% of all football players go on to play college, and even less than 1% of those kids are actually going to go make it to the NFL. So it's like, when you look at the numbers, you're going to be based off what you do education-wise, academic-wise, more so than sports. I mean, it's great when it happens, but those numbers are so few that the kids have to realize that their academics is going to be so much more important.
Yeah, I mean, I think any bowler on my bowling team could bowl on a college team. I've seen the talent on some of the college teams when Julia goes, and not that they get recruited, but like Kira Cleveland's number 3 in the class. Right. She's 3rd, valedictorian, salutatorian, Kira.
Right.
She's really smart, really easy to coach, and she could bowl. My other, every one of them. Gabby, Erica, I'm losing those 3. One coach took a look at their form, he'd say, I can work with that. Any coach at a college level especially. Right. But they got to get the grades to go. And they're, all the kids, it's you're lucky because you get the bowlers. The bowlers are the smart kids. Right. The nerds, as they like to call themselves. New Boston Huron senior Lexi Thomas signed to play basketball at Aquinas. And Allen Park Cabrini's Wyndham Reed, she's going to play softball at Bowling Green.
Yeah, it's a cool time for the kids. We were talking about beforehand. I mean, to bring that table out, to do it in front of all the other athletes. For the parents too. I mean, some of these kids, no matter what you're involved in, if it's bowling, softball, tennis, basketball, it's probably something you've been doing for over probably 10 years. It's probably not something you picked. If you're going to college to play it, it's probably not something you've been doing for a year or two.
Correct.
And the kids don't realize too, they always look at the big sports, but I don't know how many times I've seen kids like for rowing, for golf, for some of these sports and don't realize what could be out there. We've had kids that have played basketball that the one exception could be a kid hasn't really rowed, but they look at some of these kids, how much strength they have, how tall they are, and they're like, oh yeah, we can take you, and like you said, mold you into what we want you to be.
I just found out my 9th grader, Emily Head, she rows. I said, a lot of running in that rowing. She said, oh, it's not that bad. I said, if you say it's not that bad and you're on rowing and it's running, then you're going to be in pretty good shape. And I'm just thinking, make her stronger because I'll make her a bowler.
Yeah.
She's never touched a bowling ball really till this year.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to have her stronger, and that'll be great.
And you don't realize, too, and I can mention rowing really quickly here, but, how much work goes into that. I mean, for the kids, the running aspect, being on the water, the upper body strength. I mean, those kids work so hard. I called one of the coaches on the way here. I'm like, hey, give me your 30-second synopsis of what happened, because they had their first regatta Saturday. They went out to Grand Rapids. They actually won 4 of 11 races, so that's a good start for them. They have 53 kids on the team, so that's pretty good. It's one thing we're noticing a lot of teams. Like I've asked some of the other teams, like track-wise and rowing-wise numbers, and numbers are lower. Well, a lot of the issue, too, is, we're lucky in Wyandotte. We're not pay to play. And that's one of the things I didn't realize. Like, these schools are pay to play. Like, parents are afraid because they're like, okay, what if my kid has to go into quarantine? I've paid this money now for my kid to be in a sport. But,
get your shots.
Yeah,
kids,
so
coming up for kids.
Which I can mention that, too, a little bit, too, about actually Roosevelt's doing a vaccination clinic. But they have a regatta at Kensington Park this Saturday with about 4 other schools.
Oh, right on the pond.
Yeah, right on the pond. Yeah, so at Kensington, they're going to be there this Saturday. They're obviously not, they're doing stuff outside the box because they're not going to Canada. They can't go to Canada for some of those major regattas that they would have had. St. Catharines, they're not going there. So it's going to be basically like here, Grand Rapids, and then some of the other places as well. But, our rowing program, which if you don't know, like Marty said, if you go to the boat club, you'll see them practicing.
The facility is one of the best. My father-in-law is in the Hall of Fame there, and the facility that they have, bar none, is the best facility. All the teams in the area use it.
Yep.
Everybody, they got 8 jerseys on the wall. You've got them all. Everybody downriver is rowing out of there. Yep. Like I said, Riverview was on the water yesterday. Yep. They all got to take their time when they can get it because they're sharing that facility. But I remember they would run from that facility to Ecorse and back.
Yep.
That's a nice little jog.
And you don't realize that there is running involved with the rowing program. But if you ever have a chance to go down, like the Hebda Cup and some of the other things that they do, if you ever have a chance to walk down to the river and see that when it happens, and maybe we'll have some dates for the next time because I know that'll be coming up here in May. Those are just awesome events to go to. I mean, the people that watch it have been going for years. And the people that are involved in it, I mean, some of these people are like 2nd, 3rd generation, coaches that their parents were coaches and now they're coaching. So rowing's a pretty cool sport if you haven't ever had a chance to check it out.
Yeah, my buddies, my hockey coach buddies, they wanted to start an adult rowing thing. So you guys go ahead. Yeah. Go right ahead.
Yeah, anybody who does it, just go on people that say, oh, I go on a rowing machine. I'm like, yeah, go on the water and see what it's really like. That'll be a true test for you.
The boat club's got that 8-person one in the ceiling. That thing's 50 feet long, easily.
It's not cheap to row either. I mean, that's, probably rowing, believe it or not, probably is more expensive, when you think of, boats and stuff like that, maybe hockey. I mean, I know they obviously pay for ice time.
I think it's the most expensive out there because I think one of them boats probably is around $10,000, I would guess, if not more.
Yeah.
And then in a matter of years, that thing's going to be outdated. It's like the latest bowling ball.
Right.
In 2 years, they're going to have a design that's a little more aerodynamic, a little more lightweight. Next thing you know, you're into fiberglass and all that other stuff. And so you spend 10, 12, 15 grand. We have to get the coach to tell us how much.
Yeah, I think I heard over 20 for the last boat they bought.
Doubt it.
You're paying. Think about it. I mean, it's up there with what you would buy a car for. With how long it would last for. But yeah, we could definitely probably find out. I'm curious to see how much. I know
5 figures.
I know that in a year, and that's why they have so many fundraisers, and that's what hurt them this past year because a lot of the fundraisers they couldn't have. They've had luau's. They've had. Sausage making, ones for Christmas and stuff like that. And a lot of that stuff couldn't happen. So I know that they were really hurting for some of the fundraisers that they couldn't have.
Yeah, I get out lucky in bowling because bowling ball's about $150,
Yeah.
you know. What else do we want to talk about?
So I can mention, we were talking about the COVID stuff earlier. Roosevelt implemented a new policy this past Monday where instead of basically testing teams like after school and kind of running into some issues as far as maybe if a kid tested positive, during the day on Monday now kids are being tested, so they're basically not having the kids come to school until after testing takes place. So they're kind of rotating through different schedules of like let's say tennis goes at 8 o'clock, and then it's golf, and then it's track, and things along those lines. So every Monday between now and the end of the season is when kids are going to test. And there actually is a vaccination clinic coming up, which I was going to mention the dates as far as for when that goes. But a lot of schools, Gibraltar was one of the first ones who did this, where they actually had vaccinations done for their athletes on site. So if Roosevelt is going to be coming up here Wednesday, April 28th from 10:30 until 2:30. It's for the athletes, any kids 16 or over, and the parents have to sign a form for it, which is online, but they've been posting about it on social media. So the first one will be on the 28th, and the second shot is going to be on May 19th. But it gets the kids vaccinated. It also then, if a kid becomes a close contact, they don't have to go into quarantine if they have been vaccinated. So it is nicer to bring it on site. I know Gibraltar was one of the first schools to do that with a vaccination clinic. We're following suit. Because it's not done in this. I mean, we're still gonna have kids. Football is gonna start up again in June, and you're gonna have off season. Getting ready for all those seasons. Basketball, some of those sports, swimming. So, this. I mean, sports don't stop. They're not gonna stop in the summertime.
They tried to put a kibosh on them, and they still. I mean, let's not get political, but just get your shot. Okay, get your shot, then it won't kill you. Oh no, look, they haven't done enough, testing on this thing. They've already had hundreds of millions of people shot up. They're still alive. Our local golf course, great little track, little 9-hole course. Did you know you can buy a membership there?
I did not know that.
Did you not know that? Senior member like me, it's $400. Now I'm going to assume that's all the golf you could play if you walk. But if there's a cart fee, I'm sure if you want a cart. Regular member, $550. It's only 9 holes, but if you were going to play 20 rounds of golf there, this is probably the way to go.
Yeah, pretty underrated too. I mean, I've had people that have gone there that are like, "Wow, this is
a nice
really
track.
It is really nice." And
8 and 9 across by the water. Don't be a slicer.
Right.
And ball's gone.
Well, that's why being a lefty is nice because my shot is not going anywhere near the water.
Goes in the dead area.
If I go in the water, I'm usually the one I'm going down, and then it hooks over. So being a lefty, I don't have to worry about that too much. But
yeah, it's a great track, and of course I looked. I brought my kids out there before I bought my business. We were playing every Monday, me and Nick, and then he got to be about 10 and didn't get to go out anymore. They're giving away free food at the Yak Arena. Gleaners, it is April 30th and May 14th, and 9 to 11 on Fridays. Pull up your car. It's free food distribution, 30 pounds of groceries. And I mean, everybody, there's people that aren't making any money.
Yep.
But our yak is on the list. So you've got 4:30 and 5:14, April 30th and May 14th. Pull up, get a bucket full of food.
A couple of local things too. The co-ed league for the summer was canceled. They didn't have as many teams sign up as they thought, but the meeting for the men's league is scheduled for Monday, April 26th at 8 p.m. And then a couple of other summer side things is as of right now, no green box for the summer or swimming lessons are being planned as of yet. Obviously, things are still kind of up in the air. Like, I don't know if we've officially heard from some stuff like
we're
the street
one of the
fair,
top 5 states in the country with COVID right now.
Right.
We got to get that number down, then we can do all these things. The Allen Park Street Fair is supposed to go off in August. I bought my 2 spots in front of the store, but who's to say that's going to happen?
Well, and like my daughters are playing Cabrini soccer right now, and that was paused for 2 weeks. So they would start back this coming Monday. Some soccer programs I've seen are starting up. We're starting up. I know one of the right at Christ the King there off Pennsylvania. I've seen. I don't know if they're the Downriver Rage or whatever they are, or Rush. I think that's the Rush soccer. They have been playing. So teams have, people have been looking at it a little bit differently. Like Cabrini said, we're going to take the pause. But there are, restrictions. Like my daughters have to wear their mask when they're playing. which
Their own water bottle.
water bottles, where they're seated, stuff like that.
I can put their name on one for you.
Yeah, there we go. So it's just, just kind of following the protocol. And, we've been telling the kids too, especially for making sure that, there's not water provided at practices and stuff like that. You got to have your own stuff. And most kids are following it.
Now, get a hold of us, localsportswrapup@gmail.com. I actually had a couple of emails last week. Flat Rock teacher Chris Elliott passed away Monday, age of 51. They closed the schools on Tuesday. He was a 24-year veteran in the district. Our thoughts go out to his family. He coached varsity baseball for 16 years. And in 2001, they won a Division III state title. It was the only state title in the area for baseball until Gabriel Richard did it a couple years ago. Yep. So it was 16 years between a championship. He's in the Flat Rock Athletic Hall of Fame. He coached football team at the middle school. They went 3 years undefeated. And he coached basketball at the school, and they went 2 years without a loss. He's a heck of a guy.
Yeah, pretty good. And Flat Rock has had pretty good baseball teams, and, that was a pretty good accomplishment back when they did that in 2001.
Well, because he's coaching them at the middle school, they were getting better.
Right, exactly. So that is a huge loss for, our hearts go out to the Flat Rock community and the loss of Chris Elliott.
So I'm Marty Chinesky and my buddy George here. Maybe we get Ken back next week because George won't be here. And if you really want to get in on this, email us at localsportswrapup@gmail.com, and I'll drag you in here and we'll see what you got. No singing necessary, so you don't have to be able to sing. But get a hold of us next week. Watch us on YouTube. Hi, Mom, and catch us next week.